playing VVVVVV for over 8.5 years now, since September of 2017. In fact, that's probably older than about half of you watching. Over the course of my time playing the game, I've grown an attachment to several of the game's levels, but the very first level in the game, Space Station 1, is the one that introduced me to just how perfect of a masterpiece VVVVVV is. Welcome to another episode of my level analysis series. This is also my very first video fully about VVVVV. It's my favorite game ever made, and as I already stated, I've been playing it for quite a while. This is also my first video of 2026. Anyways, here we'll be looking at Space Station 1's layout, aesthetic, and highlights. But anyways, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and let's jump right in. Okay, so first let's talk about the layout. Now, before we even get to play the level, the game begins with a cutscene. So basically, Captain Viridian and his crew are just chatting on their ship when suddenly the ship gets affected by dimensional interference. The crew evacuates the ship via teleporter, but they each end up scattered in a random area in a dimension known as Dimension VVVVV. The only one who stays in the ship is Violet, and in this game you control Viridian, who is stranded in Space Station 1. Right away, the game explains how to control the player, which is obviously the most important part of any video game. You can use the arrow keys like me, but you can also use the WASD keys if you're a speedrunner or something. The next room showcases how you can flip gravity in this game. Most other platformers have you jump, but VVVVV is unique because you cannot jump but rather flip gravity. This is showcased by having a pit of deadly spikes you need to get across, and at the bottom of the screen there is a text box telling you that you can flip by pressing space. The third room showcases another important feature in this game. After Viridian talks about how he misses his crew, you stumble upon a weird object with the letter C in it. Interacting with it will make it flash white. After you press the space button to flip again, you fall up, landing in a red room where we encounter a second obstacle, which are these policeman-like objects that move up and down holding a stop sign. Trying to touch them will kill you, but instead of respawning back at the very first room of the game, you respawn back at the C sign from earlier. This shows that these things function as checkpoints. After getting past the stop enemies, you are faced with a split path. You can either go down or across the spike pit, leading you to the next room. Going down leads to a secret challenge, having you flip diagonally where you can collect the game's first shiny trinket. It is then revealed that there are 20 of them in the whole game. Going the normal way leads to the next room, which is also nice to practice jumping diagonally. Anyways, here you can find the game's first terminal, which just explains what happened here in the past. In this room, you just have to avoid these weird spaceship enemies and move left. Here you just have to avoid the super fast enemy that looks a lot like a Pokeball for some reason. The next room introduces platforms, specifically disappearing platforms and moving platforms. The top part has 3 disappearing platforms that you can run on, and the bottom part has a moving platform that you need to ride. In between those 2 challenges, there is a room featuring this game's second cutscene. Basically, Violet explains that the teleporter on the ship has malfunctioned and everyone has been teleported randomly. Violet is the only one still on the ship, but Viridian is still stranded in the space station. Violet then broadcasts the ship's coordinates and can't teleport Viridian back, but if you can find a teleporter, you should be able to get back to the ship. Back to regular gameplay though. After riding the moving platform, you land in a room similar to the one with those stop enemies from earlier. Getting past here is pretty easy as you just have to avoid the enemies. Going down again, you are faced with another set of platforms, however these are moving platforms that move vertically, forming a staircase. You are also faced with a split path again. You can either go right or continue to go down. Going right takes us to the second trinket in the game, which is slightly trickier than the first one. To collect it, you have to flip on the moving platform while it's above the spikes. Do this 3 times so you can collect the trinket. Going down allows us to continue on with the level. Here you just have to flip up and down a few times to avoid dying in the spikes, and the next room features a giant bus enemy you have to avoid by flipping on the platform below. After a checkpoint, you need to go up and jump off some disappearing platforms before making it to what might be the hardest part of the level. It's not that hard when you do it several times, but for new players it can be kind of tricky. Basically, you have to make it across to the next room, however there are 4 spikes in the way preventing you from crossing. So basically, you have to go down the pit in the middle of the room as is the only other option. Here you have to avoid a bunch of spikes and land straight at the bottom. Then you have to flip back up to the top so you can reach the other side. This is probably the hardest part of the level as it requires the most precision. After the challenge, you are faced with a bunch of disappearing platforms you have to sink through to get to the next room. Now on the one hand, this is nice to act as a quick breather after a challenge, however on the other hand it feels like filler when you replay the game, but it is what it is. The next 2 rooms are pretty easy, you just have to avoid a few enemies before reaching the teleporter. After being teleported back to the ship, the level finally comes to a close. All in all, this level is perfect at introducing the game. It showcases all the main gimmicks perfectly, and the challenge is very fair as well. Okay, now let's finally talk about the aesthetic. The layout section was extremely long, so I really hope this is about a million times shorter. Space Station 1's aesthetic varies a lot due to every room being a different color and pattern. There are 32 different colors to be exact. Most of the rooms include these background tiles that you can interact with, and almost every sprite in each room matches with its color. The song here is called Pushing Onwards, and it is great. Overall, the aesthetic here is very cool. Now it's time for some highlights. Both trinkets here are really cool, and the challenge at the end was a very nice test of the player's abilities. I also really like how it crosses with Space Station 2, hinting about what's to come. But my favorite is probably this. You see, VVVVV has this thing called Invincibility Mode, which basically makes spikes and enemies not hurt you. Well, during the hardest part of the level, you can actually walk on the spikes to go left, and you can actually rescue Vitelli first. Then you can teleport back to the ship the normal way, so you can actually skip the intermission level. I don't know if this was intentional or not, but either way, it can be really useful for speedrunning. So with all of that being said, where does Space Station 1 belong on the VVVVV level analysis tier list? Well, first off, I really love how it introduces the player to the game. I like how it starts off simple, but then puts the player to the test near the end. The aesthetic is also really cool, and each room has its own unique color. The song Pushing Onwards is also really good, and the speed strat I just mentioned is cool too. So with that being said, I think Space Station 1 deserves an S tier. I really think this is the perfect start to VVVVVV. But anyways, that's it for this video. Do you love the enemies in Trench Warfare and hate me for not mentioning them? Let me know in the comments. Sorry if the script here feels kind of rushed. I haven't made a video in over a month and I've been really busy with other stuff. I also recently created a brand new wiki on fandom. It doesn't really have any articles related to my videos, but you can check it out if you'd like. The link is in the description. But anyways, I'll see you guys next time. Bye!